My name is Maxim, and if you are reading this story now, chances are I am already dead or will die very soon. For a long time, I couldn't bring myself to tell what happened to me last autumn, because I would have never believed something like this myself if I hadn't experienced it firsthand. At school, I was known as someone who could always stand up for himself, and because of that, I quickly realized that other people's fear gives a strange sense of power. The easiest target for me was Artem, a quiet guy from our class who barely spoke to anyone, always sat alone, and acted as if he was afraid to even lift his eyes from the floor. At first, it all started as ordinary jokes, but over time, I stopped noticing the line between a joke and real bullying. I could push him in the hallway, take his things, or start mocking him in front of the whole class, and every time he would just remain silent. What annoyed me the most was that very silence. I wanted to hear at least one threat or insult in response, but Artem only looked at me with sad eyes and walked away. Once, I locked him in an old closet near the gym for almost 2 hours, and when he came out, he didn't even complain to the teachers. Now I understand that this should have alarmed me, but back then, I thought I was just having fun. As if someone was rocking in an old chair. I went up to the second floor. It was much colder there. The corridor stretched into the darkness, and the doors to the wards were wide open. My flashlight suddenly began to flicker. "Not now," I muttered. And right then, I heard footsteps. Heavy, slow, somewhere ahead. I froze. At the end of the corridor, something moved. A massive silhouette. I only managed to catch a glimpse of a white lab coat. A newborn. Everything inside me turned to ice. I turned and bolted back. The footsteps behind me grew faster. The floor literally shook from how heavily someone was running after me. I looked back for just a split second, and I saw her. A massive woman in an old medical coat was running after me, breathing heavily. Her fat arms flapped in all directions, and her face was so pale, it looked as though she belonged in a grave long ago. I didn't know her name yet, but I will remember that look forever. She was smiling, as if she was glad I came. "Stop!" she screamed in a raspy voice. I reached the stairs, and at that exact moment, the floorboard cracked beneath my foot. A strike to the head, a snap in my leg, and then darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was already strapped to a bed. My body ached as if I'd been run over by a truck. An old lamp hung above me. It flickered with a yellow light. I tried to move. My arms were tied. My legs too. "Awake," a coarse woman's voice called out. I turned my head and saw her. Huge, fat, almost as wide as 2 doorways. Her coat was covered in old, brownish stains, and keys hung around her neck. Dozens of keys. "Where am I?" I barely whispered. She smiled. "In the hospital, Andreychenko." I barely heard the neighbors. Sometimes strange noises came from downstairs, like someone dragging something heavy across the floor. But old buildings always make noises. After a month, I had almost forgotten the landlady's warning. Sometimes I remembered it and laughed. "Don't
go near the door. It sounded like a cheap horror movie. One evening, I was sitting at my computer, editing a video. It was around 2 in the morning. Rain was pouring outside. And suddenly, knock. I froze. The sound came from the window.
Quiet, like someone lightly tapped a finger against the glass. Knock. I slowly turned my head. The apartment was on the 7th floor. Nobody could possibly be outside the window. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Knock. This time, louder. I stood up and suddenly remembered the landlady's words. Don't go near it. My body tensed. But then I scoffed. Yeah, right, I muttered. That night, I woke up around 3 o'clock again. At first, everything was quiet, but then I heard the creaking of the floorboards near my bedroom door. It was the sound of slow footsteps. Someone was moving toward my bed. I lay motionless, afraid to even breathe. The footsteps kept getting closer until they finally stopped right next to me. Gathering all my courage, I opened my eyes. Artem was standing by the bed. His skin resembled gray wax, and dark, hollow voids blackened beneath his eyes. He stared at me just as silently as he had in life, but now there was something far more terrifying in his gaze. I tried to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. My body wouldn't obey me. Artem slowly leaned down to my face and whispered.
About 3 months had passed. I had gotten so used to that apartment that it already felt like home. Even the old creaking floorboards stopped bothering me. Sometimes I remembered the strange landlady and her warning, but now it just sounded ridiculous. Until that night. I woke up around 3 in the morning. At first, I didn't even understand why. The apartment was dark. Only the pale light from the street lamp outside slightly lit the room. And then I heard it. Knock. 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 Someone was knocking on the door. Slowly, like they were doing it on purpose.
I'm Maxim. Are you a patient too? He nodded. Going on 3 months now. Everything inside me turned to ice. Why haven't you escaped? Maxim laughed nervously. You think I haven't tried? He leaned in closer. He reeked of blood and medicine. This isn't a hospital, Andrei. It's a slaughterhouse. I remained silent. They pump people full of some kind of garbage. Then they perform the procedures. And those who survive, they keep them here. Is the lobotomy real? Maxim nodded slowly. Every morning, they take someone away.
And then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Artem was standing right behind me. His face was just inches from mine. Do you remember how you used to laugh? He asked quietly. I wanted to answer, but I couldn't. Do you remember how everyone watched and did nothing? I stepped back. I begged you to stop. His voice began to change, becoming deeper and increasingly unnatural. And now, it's my turn. At that moment, he lunged at me. I woke up, feeling a heavy pressure on my neck. Slow, dragging, as if someone massive was walking straight toward our ward. Maxim instantly went pale. She's coming.
He began cutting the strap faster. My hand was almost free. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Silence fell. Then, the doorknob slowly began to turn down. "Pretend," Maxim whispered. I immediately lay back and closed my eyes. The door opened with a creak. I heard Katyushka's heavy breathing. She stepped inside. The floorboards literally groaned under her weight. For a few seconds, there was absolute silence.
The last thing I remember are his empty black eyes and the sensation of the world around me slowly plunging into darkness. The next morning, I was found dead in my own bed. The police ruled that the cause was sudden cardiac arrest. They could never explain the strange bruises on my neck, which looked like the imprints of human fingers. And a few days later, one of my classmates said that late in the evening, he saw two figures near my grave. One belonged to me, and the second to Artem. And they were slowly walking into the darkness, never looking back.